Let's bring in Pete Hegseth, Fox and Friends weekend co-host and author of a book on the education situation in this country, and Leo Terrell, constitutional attorney and Fox News contributor. He's also a former high school teacher. Leo, let me start with you. You went through this study, saw the Wall Street Journal in-depth piece that they wrote on it. What's the biggest concern that you have when you look at what happened here?
Total crickets by the union, Martha. This is devastating. Let me be very clear. These kids can never make this up. What I also saw was the disparity between those who are at the lower end of this spectrum, particularly minorities, people of color. These schools should have never been closed, Martha. And Randy Weingarten and the union representatives, they used these kids as pawns. These 2 years of education they lost, they'll never get them back. So what I find disingenuous is they use the COVID as a pretext. The safest kids in the world were the kids if they stayed at school. And we lost those years. And the quality of education is so important. And we still have a mayor in Washington, D.C. who still thinks the pandemic is still going on. It is tragedy. As a person of color, it's heart-wrenching because education is a civil rights issue. And the school district and the unions and the extreme left use these kids as pawns, and they lost their education.
Pete, I cannot understand where the outrage is. Remember Randy Weingarten's outrage at people suggesting that the schools should be reopened. She'd come on. I interviewed her several times during that period. Oh, we don't have the resources. We don't have the resources. We can't possibly. Remember the teachers in front with the body bags and cemeteries, saying, if you make us go back, you're going to kill us. Where is the passion around this issue? Take a look at the allocation. $122 billion of the hard-earned taxpayer money that went to COVID relief was allocated to our schools. They haven't spent 87.5% on it. So why did we hear so much screaming about resources if they weren't going to address the problem, Pete?
Well, our assumption is that it was all about kids, and I agree with everything Leo just said. This is about power and control for unions. What did that money go to instead? A lot of it went to diversity, equity, inclusion counselors and more woke aspects of education as opposed to getting kids in school. This ultimately should shock nobody. And it was not to point the finger at Trump. It was the Trump White House that was trying to get the teachers in the schools to reopen. The American.
Go ahead, Pete. We have that Cardona tweet, which also caught my eye.
Pediatrics.
Let's just get, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So here's what he said. A few weeks after POTUS put measures in place, a majority of schools were open for the first time since the pandemic started, but we are not finished. The Department of Education has more to do. Now we have to repair the damage done by Donald Trump's mismanagement of the pandemic. That was the first tweet that Cardona sent out when he got this report. He has since softened that language a little bit in the statement that they put out. I'm sorry, Pete, go ahead.
No, false, false, false. Gaslighting. They browbeat. The Trump administration attempted to get the unions to do it, worked hard with the Academy of Pediatrics. In fact, the pediatrics group wanted to open the schools, and the unions put so much pressure on them, they reversed course. The kids were never vulnerable. They were never threatened. This was about unions. And, instead, you saw a lot of these school boards renaming schools. One in Minnesota, my home state, Patrick Henry High School. Oh, it's been renamed. And it's the best school in Minneapolis, but only 65% of ninth graders can read at grade level. And that's the best school. The average in Minneapolis, 36% reading at grade level.
So pathetic.
What about the kids who are 9 in this study when they're ninth graders?
Yeah. I can't even believe this is the United States of America, Leo. I can't believe it when I look at these numbers. This is a country that has always prided itself on our public education system. And we're talking about scores that are 215 out of a range of 0 to 500. And we're supposed to be okay with even a 7-point drop that takes it to 215.
We lost 20 years of quality education in those 3 years of where the unions and the strategy was to keep kids at home. They didn't get education. The school teachers loved it, Martha. They loved it. And I was on your show, and I broke down like a crybaby when the collateral damage, the kids who lost their interaction with kids, the human loss, the mental anguish of kids who couldn't go to school, and they were depressed. and you did shows on that. This falls at the hands of the union. As a former school teacher, I'm telling you, I'm sick by this. We, the three of us, represent the benefits of a quality education. These kids lost quality education, and they'll never get it back, Martha.
Yeah. You know, I think about President Biden, who stands up at a lot of these appearances and talks about guns and other issues that he's very passionate about, and that's his prerogative. And he says, "What are we doing here?" And I'm thinking, where does he stand up and look at this and say, what are we doing here? His wife, Dr. Jill Biden, doctorate in education. This should be front of mind. They should say every teacher is going to be measured on how they get their students caught up, and we're going to be looking at every one of you, and we're going to be measuring your performance and making sure that you get those kids to reading level, because our 9-year-olds are suffering, and it's going to be all up and down the line when we see the bigger numbers. It's just an absolute outrage.
And every parent should have the power to choose. The money should follow them so that schools compete for them. I don't say this lightly. Yeah. We should not be proud of our public school system anymore, of our government-run school system. And I'm a product of public schools. They have failed our kids, not just in the basics, but now in extreme indoctrination, racist policies, gender policies at the youngest of ages. So one of the bonuses is they weren't in school for 2 years. At least they weren't being taught to change their gender. That's what we've come to at this point. Parents need to wake up, seek a choice, and politicians should seek to give them that choice. Only competition, choice, and options will liberate kids, and the most vulnerable kids, from the grip of unions who just want to rip more money and are never held to account for their standards.
Yeah. And we wonder why we're seeing what we're seeing in the cities, and younger kids getting involved in crime situations on the subways. It's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. But they've been let go out of the system. 50,000 kids didn't show up for the first day of school in Los Angeles. Now, some of them transferred to other schools. Some of them are probably gone forever from our education system, and that's on all of us. That's on this whole country, and dropping the ball and selling our kids short. So I know that you both feel very strongly about this. Leo, thank you very much. Great to have you with us. We'll continue to dig in on this.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.